Hey everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. This time we are going to be talking about XCOM UFO Defense, or UFO Enemy Unknown, depending on where you are in the world. So this is not your traditional horror game, but it's definitely a game that gave me a lot of scares growing up. The game does an excellent job of building up tension, especially during the night missions. And when you end up in a terror site, which I'll explain later, with a bunch of snake men, you will definitely know first you'll know what fear is, and then you'll be like, okay, let's go ahead and abort this and try later on when I actually think I have a chance and know how the game is played. Anyway, let's get into the gameplay here. So XCOM is a tactical strategy game, or it kind of goes into like tactical RPG to a little bit, but for the most part it's a tactical strategy game. You're taking turns, moving units around, and you are just trying not to die, which is something you can do very easily in this game. You start off by playing as XCOM, which is kind of a shadowy global organization designed to counteract a bunch of aliens who are invading the planet. When this all starts out, you don't know where the aliens are coming from, aside from space. You don't know what their goals are. You really don't know anything. Aside from the fact that they look different from you, that means they're bad, and you have to kill them. It helps that they're trying to kill you too, of course, but there really isn't a whole lot of reason for what is going on or why you're having to do the things that you're doing. Once you've established your base, which really you can put anywhere, it helps if you put it in a place where a lot of the countries that are going to be funding your operation are. That way you can kind of defend them, keep them happy, and they'll increase your funding. But it doesn't really matter too much. You can make it really hard for yourself and put it in Hawaii. That'll be fun, but I don't recommend doing that. I've tried it before, it doesn't end well. From there, you can go to the base screen and you can just build a few facilities. These include like hangars, living quarters for all your soldiers, laboratories so you can research more stuff, workshops so you can build more weapons, which can be used both to equip your units and to sell them to other people. And it allows you to kind of build up your defenses and other things that you're going to need in order to really keep playing the game. One of the things that you need to build is, general stores, because you end up filling up your, what the base can actually hold very fast. Once you think you have your base all squared away, then you go to the map screen again, which is called the geoscape, and you just kind of wait. Wait for an alien to show up, or for a UFO to show up. This can sometimes take days in the game time. You just sit there and you click on, whether you want the game speed to increase by 1 minute, 5 minutes, 30 minutes, 1 hour, or 1 day. But don't worry, eventually an alien will show up. I only had one game where it took them like a month and a half to actually show up, which was just absolutely awful. When a UFO does show up, you send one of your interceptors, it shoots it down, assuming that it's a small one, because if it's anything larger than, I think, medium, you're kind of screwed, which you shouldn't get very early on in the game, but weird things have happened before in this to me. Once you shoot down the enemy aircraft, you send a Sky Ranger, which holds a bunch of your soldiers. It goes out there to the crash site, and you do what you've basically been seeing on the screen for a while. You move your soldiers around, once you find an enemy, then you pick whether you want to do a snapshot, auto shot, or aim shot. Each one depends on the number of time units that your characters have. And then you just kind of cross your fingers and hope that you hit it. Because I'm going to tell you one thing that I've learned from playing this. Those percentages don't mean a goddamn thing. Like, your characters have hit points. That doesn't matter. One shot will kill them. When you get armor, that armor might as well just be made out of paper mache and toothpicks, because it's not really going to protect you from the alien shots. It just gives you a false sense of security. It can help because you can take a shot, but it's all up to chance. I've had just as many soldiers die from one shot while they're wearing power armor as I've had from them not wearing anything at all. Or they'll get killed from wearing power armor, but hey, you'll still have a chance to get through it. It's all completely random. I still have not totally figured out how your characters stay alive, but hey, it's just part of the fun of the game. You just try new stuff, recruit new soldiers, try not to get personally attached to anybody, and move on to the next mission. So let's kind of talk a little bit of the strategy of the game. So strategy is probably one of the hardest things for me to really explain in this, so I'll just tell you how I play the game. This may or may not work out for you, but it's how I do it. I usually stick with the laser weapons because they are just, at least in my opinion, they're the better ones. You don't need to waste as much Elerium to make them. You don't need to waste as much resources maintaining them because they don't have ammunition. They just seem to be the better choice of weapons when you're playing it. At least they have been for me. If you do research plasma weapons, they're stronger. You can pick them up from the aliens. You can manufacture them yourself. But you can run into issues if you don't have enough Elerium, which is what the aliens use to power their spaceships, and what a lot of your stuff will use once you start researching more alien craft. So once you do research alien craft, which would require you to, 1, capture a downed UFO, you then need to research alien alloys, the alien navigation, and the alien power source, and then research new fighter craft, new transports, that sort of thing. All of those new ships require the element 115, which is Elerium, to actually run. The only way you can get Elerium is by capturing it from the aliens. So it creates this really, really hard thing to do where you have to keep trying to capture alien craft that are on the ground or capture alien bases so you can get more of this. And it can be a pain in the ass to do. Especially if you get into a longer game. Then it just becomes just incredibly annoying to do anything in the game. You're also really going to want to try to avoid fighting at night. It's just a major pain in the ass. You can't see the enemies at night, but they can all see you. And you will, leave your Sky Ranger or your transport or whatever, and sometimes immediately you'll get shot at, but you won't really know from where, and you won't know how far away. So you might end up sending your soldiers just randomly off into nothingness, trying to find this alien, and then hoping you have enough time units yet after moving around to be able to shoot at it. And hopefully hit it. Which, there's a whole lot of hopefuls and maybes in this. That's part of the fun of this game. It's also part of the frustration of it, because the game has a lot of hard difficulty spikes. And once you get to a point where you can actually, fight the aliens, then a new species will show up. And they'll be a little bit harder to kill than the last one. So the game's always changing things up on you and making it harder and harder for you to actually do things, which is what the game is supposed to do. I mentioned terror sites earlier. I'll get a little bit more into those. So a terror site is when the aliens decide to attack one of the cities. So you'll see the major cities on the screen. There'll be, just a little red and yellow dot with the name of the city on it. Every once in a while, usually once a month, the aliens will attack one of those cities. And you'll have to go in there and fight them off. this is when you'll encounter other aliens that you don't see anywhere else aside from in alien bases or in the actual terror sites. And these can be really, really hard. Like, once you get used to fighting the sectoids, you're all happy with that. Then they throw a cyber disc at you, and your rifles, if you catch them early in the game, those rifles might as well just be you throwing wads of wet toilet paper at them, because it's going to take forever. They're going to kill you. You're just not going to fare very well, especially with rifles. You need something stronger, so you need one of the heavy weapons that you have at the beginning of the game. And even then, you're not really guaranteed to beat them. The game, again, it can be very mean to new players. Especially if you're like me and you played this at like the age of, I think I was like 9 or 10 when I started playing this, and had no idea what the hell I was doing. And then you run into the Snake Men. So if you've played the modern ones, the Snake Men are basically mean versions of the Viper that you see in XCOM 2. The Vipers in XCOM 2 are pansies compared to the Snake Men in XCOM. Especially when you meet them on a terror site and they've got chrysalids with you. Chrysalids are just... they're the most evil unit in the goddamn game. I hate them more than ethereals. And ethereals are annoying because they're just intense psychic beings that take over your own characters and everything, which they're bullshit. But the chrysalids are even worse because they'll turn your characters into zombies. Like one shot, now your character's a zombie. You kill the zombie, and it just turns into a chrysalid. So you didn't really do anything, and now, the aliens have another chrysalid out there. So you meet these things on terror sites. What makes them even eviler on terror sites is the fact that there are a bunch of civilians around. I think there's usually somewhere between like 10 and 15 civilians around. So that's 10 to 15 chrysalids that you now need to fight, on top of the ones that are already on the map, not including the ones that are going to be fighting you because they're turning your soldiers into chrysalids as well. So you're dealing with that shit. And these chrysalids don't die easy. It can take like 3 or 4 shots to kill these stupid things. You're also fighting the Snake Men, which can take several shots to kill as well. It's just incredibly annoying and incredibly frustrating to deal with them. And at times downright scary, especially if you end up doing a Snake Men terror site when you're at night. Then it's like, oh my god, let's just get back on the stupid Sky Ranger and get the hell out of here. I think I've rambled on enough about some strategies and whatnot. So, or at least I've tried to. You're usually going to want to move around your characters in groups. I usually try to stick to like 2 or 3. And, you kind of want to keep to cover in some ways, but cover in this game doesn't really matter that much. It's more about concealing your units than actually like leaving them out in the open or stuff like that. Even though at times that's completely unavoidable. So let's move on to some memories, because I don't think I can really talk too much more about what I do in the game. This was one of those games where I think we got a copy of it from a friend, from my brother's friend. One of the few games that's how I found out about it is through my brother's friends. Normally I found out about games through my friends. But he brought this over, and I'm pretty sure they played it over at his house first before they brought it over and installed it on our computer. But we weren't really given a whole lot of information on it, or at least I wasn't. I would just watch my brother play, get into a mission, die, and then ask if I could have a turn, and he would say no. So that's pretty much how that would go. I still remember the time when I think I killed the first alien, and both of us were just so excited that we were able to kill one of the aliens, because before, we would get into a mission, or at least my brother would get into a mission, the aliens would wipe out his entire team and he'd have to start over. And then I played it for a little bit, didn't really know what I was doing, ended up losing a few times, like fairly early on, because I kept seeing, well, my brother's dying from fighting the aliens, so I'm just not going to do that, which obviously is not the point of the game. And then I started fighting them, and I started, actually doing well and able to, like, beat the aliens and then beat the missions and whatnot. So it was like a slow progression for both of us to actually get through this. And it was just a lot of fun going through this sort of thing and kind of watching these minor successes that we're having and just kind of playing the game and messing around and having fun with it. Then I started introducing my other friends to it, and they all got into it. And then we started kind of like saying, okay, this character is going to be me, this character is you. And then we try to keep those characters alive, which is just a fool's errand in this game, because you're not going to keep your characters alive, at least not for very long. In the newer ones, it's much easier to go through the game without losing soldiers. In this game, don't get attached to anybody. It's just not worth it. But I remember trying to figure out all of this stuff and just constantly losing because we didn't really have like strategies for how to beat the game. We didn't know anything. We didn't know anybody who had beaten the game. Like a lot of other times when you're a kid, you just have like friends who claim that they have beaten it. And you kind of believe them because, it seems like a dumb thing to lie about. Because it is kind of a dumb thing to lie about. But yeah, I don't think we ever beat it when we were younger. We knew how to beat it. The way you have to do it, you have to, oh gosh, how can I explain this? First, you have to capture live aliens, and then you learn about the aliens' origins off on Mars. Then you have to capture, I think it's a leader. It doesn't matter which race, but you just have to capture a leader from one of the races. Interrogate them, find out about sort of like the menace behind it. I think you might have to get an ethereal leader, but don't quote me on that. I'm probably wrong. But from there, then you can take your Avenger, because you have to get the best craft in the game, which is the Avenger. It's a transport that holds, I think, 24 characters, or maybe more than that. And it also has 2 weapons on board. I'm fairly confident of that one. And then you go to Mars, and you have to fight the exterior of the base, get inside the base, and then kill the alien brain, which is controlling everything. And then from there it sends a signal down to Earth, and that kind of awakens this weird Cthulhu-type alien race that lives underwater, and then you fight them in XCOM Terror from the Deep. But don't worry about that. But I just had so much fun playing this game with my friends. Especially just, you would get into a spot, especially a night mission, and you just sort of like cringe. Like every time you're clicking that end turn button, you're just holding your breath. And so there would be like 3 or 4 of us huddled around the CRT monitor, just like, okay, we think we're in a good position. Let's go ahead. Okay, click the end turn. And then we just watch a bunch of plasma fly across the screen and maybe hit people that we liked. Maybe they hit people we didn't care that much about. Or maybe they hit the characters that we cared about. And yeah, it was just a lot of fun playing it. There are quite a few PC games that I remember doing that with, where you and your friends are hanging out playing games like this. And it was always a game that we would play late at night, and it just made it a little bit scarier. Because it's not necessarily a horror game, but you can get a little bit of terror in it, a little fear going through you when you're trying to play this and just trying to stay alive and keep your characters going, and hoping that this rookie that you've had on your team for several hours, who's made his way up to Colonel, just hoping that this idiot can somehow survive a plasma shot to the face, which, spoiler alert, he probably can't. Anyway, let's get into my final thoughts here, and we'll wrap this whole thing up. this is probably one of my favorite, if not my favorite, PC games. It's right up there with Heroes of Might and Magic. I just absolutely love the first XCOM. It's hard as hell. It can be scary at times. It can be insanely frustrating because the difficulty will just spike on you for no reason. Or you can get yourself into a situation where, 3 UFOs in, you're suddenly getting battleships. Or after the first UFO, the aliens manage to find your base and drop a bunch of aliens down on your base, which has happened to me at times. Or what's even more fun is when they build a base directly next to yours, which is just weird, but it happened one time. And yeah, it's just one of those games that's full of surprises. You never have the same playthrough, no matter how many times you try to replicate it. Just weird shit will happen in this game. And you just need to deal with it. It's one of the games where I look back and I wonder, how the hell did I even play this game when I was a kid? Because it was that hard to play. And then I look at people talking about how hard games are now, and I'm like, no, you don't understand. Like, if you wanted a tutorial for XCOM, you had to read the manual. You also had to have the manual, not just have a friend who gave you the game. Like, there was no hand-holding in this. It was just absolutely painful. But yeah, this was probably, I don't know. I probably could have ended Halloween with, or at least the month of October with other games, but I think XCOM kind of fits. It was one of those games that was kind of dark, kind of scary, and it definitely can freak you out a little bit if you get a little bit too attached to your characters, and you click that end screen and you see the unknown movement, and you just have a bunch of enemy shots flying at you. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.